Hello and welcome again to the Stoned Roadie Show, the Stoned Roadie Show with Craig Reed. Of course, Craig Reed is the most famous roadie in rock and roll history, and he's actually making an appearance on the Stoned Roadie Show today, his own show. And usually we uh, we have other guests on. We had Joe Barnes scheduled to come on, and we had some technical difficulties getting him hooked up on the computer, so we're going to have to postpone that. Joe Barnes was original roadie with the band back before Craig, and so he's got a lot of great stories. And so the other thing too is I made a post on Facebook. Yeah, that's Joe Barnes right there, that dark curly haired guy in the middle of
That's
the picture.
Dean Kilpatrick and Joe Barnes and Chuck Flowers and Kevin Elson. That's the original road crew for Lynyrd Skynyrd. Of course, I'm behind the camera, so I'm not in there.
Yeah, Craig took the picture. So we've got a great show today with Craig. Craig's back. I posted earlier, a little earlier on Facebook to come up with a topic, maybe ask some questions, and I got a lot of people asking questions here. So we'll first off we'll ask Craig. Craig, where you been lately? You've been up to some shenanigans. What you been up to?
Oh man, I just been living life retired, it's pretty cool. Can't complain about that. Oh, ain't been doing much of nothing really. Just living life. I talked to Steve Traum yesterday. Was Billy Powell's keyboard tech. Now he's working with Peter Keys, and he was telling me about he was fixing to go out on tour, and Steve Adores called him and told him that he caught him because a couple of the guys got the COVID again, I guess. So they had to cancel. I guess they canceled Allentown. This is like the fourth time or something like that. But yeah, he said, man, I still love doing this, and still enjoys being a roadie for the tribute band. And I don't guess they're gonna be touring here until the 1st of July or something like that. But I guess they're doing good. Yeah, I'm more power to them. I guess Gary's trying to get better. They're all fighting that COVID, I guess, or whatever. But
Yeah, I saw Johnny put a
wish
post
them the
on.
best.
He said, I think it wasn't COVID, it was just a cold or something. But yeah, they're kind of down for the count right now. So, got some good questions here, Craig. You ready to answer some questions?
Yeah, we were supposed to have Joe on, Joe Barnes, one
Yeah.
of the original roadies with me. Oh yeah, you just said that. I got short term memory, but yeah, we were. Yeah, that got.
Yeah, it would have been
Canceled.
good to have him on. We just couldn't figure out how to get him hooked up. So, we're going to have to work on that.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. I got short term memory, so I forgot.
Yeah, a lot of people remember Joe Barnes. He doesn't like to talk about it too much, but he's the guy that Ronnie tried to throw off the plane. And
Yeah, that was one of those things where I was talking to Griff. We were trying to figure out what the hell we were going to talk about because I was already I had a bunch of questions for Joe, like when did he start with the band and when was it before Ed and then I've seen pictures of Joe and Dean Kilpatrick like here and before I got with the band, and then they kind of left Dean behind because he wasn't really a roadie, and it was just Joe and Kevin that started as roadies, and then they picked me up, and I was the third roadie then, and then it was Kevin was like the production manager, and he took care of the keyboards. And then when I came aboard, he was like the production manager, and Joe was like the stage manager, and I was like the roadie and the drum roadie, and Joe did all the electronics and the guitars, and Kevin did the keyboards, and I just basically did drums and pushed some cabinets around and helped load the truck and stuff like that. But then, but then Joe and Ronnie had a little incident, and then we got Chuck Flowers, and then Joe was doing guitars, and Chuck was kind of setting up amps and just stuff like that, and I was doing drums, and then when after Joe and Ronnie had a little situation, and that was way overplayed by Ronnie. He was. We talked about this before. Sharon Lawrence was like the woman that gave the band this roughened image, you know, Hellraisers and stuff, you know. And if you saw her in that Tom Wills interview, you know, that's Sharon Lawrence. She wrote the book. So You Want to Be a Rock and Roll Star, you know, and talk about Lynyrd Skynyrd. I'm actually in the book. Me and Kevin and Joe, I think, are mentioned in that book. But I'd like to get Sharon to do an interview with us on here. That would be real cool, you know. I talked to her a while back on Facebook, and I've kind of lost contact with her. I'd like to try to get her back and do this. Maybe come on with us. That'd be pretty cool. But what were we talking about?
Yeah, well, we were talking a little bit about how Joe couldn't come on. One of the things about Joe Barnes is back last October, we had a little concert there for a guy who is a friend of mine, actually, and he had a heart attack behind the wheel of his car, and he crashed into a police car, and then the police officers saved his life. And then we brought in Gene Odom, and Craig came down, and Joe Barnes, and we had Nothing Fancy playing, and Joe got up on stage, and him and Craig reminisced about old times, him and Gene and Craig. And then it wasn't just a few weeks later, Joe went in for open heart surgery. So he's just now, I guess, recovered from that. So that was kind of an ironic thing. But before we get into these questions, Craig, just a little shout out to Mark Howard and his podcast, True Backstage Road Stories, and also Dave Musgrove, Vintage Skynyrd. You guys get a chance to go see Dave Musgrove and Vintage Skynyrd. He's got a really great tribute band. So we'll get into these questions, Craig. You ready?
Got it. Yeah, go.
All right. John Nottingham asked, did Bob Burns and Ronnie speak again after Bob left?
I don't believe they did. No. We were so busy after Bob left. It was just like, I don't think they had time to talk. We were either on the road or in the studio through that whole thing. We didn't really have any time at home to socialize much, you know. We really didn't.
So when you guys were doing,
I don't think they ever spoke. No, I not that I know of.
So when you guys were doing the Street Survivors tour, what was Bob doing at that time?
I didn't know. We never heard from Bob. He had some issues. I don't know. I don't know. He just kind of dropped out of the picture. I didn't hear from him about him or nothing until after the crash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And then we got Brian Thompson. He's a colorful character. He wants to know, does Craig secretly keep fat chicks in his closet?
No.
I don't think Craig wants to talk too much about that. Okay. Then let me see here. Uh, let's go down to. Oh yeah, we were talking earlier about Alan Collins, and here's a guy. He wants to hear more about Alan Collins after the crash. How about that story when you and Alan were in Mexico doing a recording for Rossington-Collins? That's a good
Oh
one that
God
nobody's
Almighty.
heard yet.
Well, we all, I forget some woman I was running around with down there was friends with the mayor of Juarez, Mexico, and we were in El Paso, Texas, and she was like a barmaid in this bar, and after that bar would close, we would go over to Juarez, Mexico, and she'd go over there, and she'd like disco danced back then, and she would go and dance with the mayor of Juarez, and his bodyguards were there, and his bodyguards would be snorting coke off the table in the bar while they were dancing. It was pretty crazy over there, man, and Alan was running around with, I forget the what mayor's son, but he was all um, involved in the crystal meth that everybody was doing. And him and Alan got busted in Mexico, and since it was the mayor's son, they kind of got out of it. Yeah, that was a wild time out there in El Paso, man. We were out there a long time. Rossington-Collins, that's where they recorded their, that Anytime, Anyplace, Anywhere. The one that I actually came up with the name Anytime, Anyplace, Anywhere, and then that coincided with Alan's title to his album, Here, There, and Back, because it was all, to me, it was all one thing. It was a racing thing, anytime, any place, anywhere we'll race, here, there, and back. It was all one thing, but it turned
And
out
then
to be
you came
two
up with
album titles.
you came up with the idea too for the album cover that had that rod
The
that
dragster, yeah, the Stratocaster made into a dragster. Yeah, that was my idea. I didn't draw it. I just said, hey, man, a Stratocaster with a small block Chevy in it, doing a wheelie out of the, and a burnout, and he liked that. And also, they were gonna call Alan's band Horsepower, and that name was already taken, and they wanted a bunch of money for the name, so he just called it Alan Collins Band, But yeah, that's a whole nother era there with Rossington. I think somebody was asking a question earlier about me telling the stories about the Rossington-Collins Band and how that all got started. When I come off tour with Journey in 1979, I called Gary right away, and he goes, "Hey man, we're putting the band back together. You want in?" And I goes, "Yeah, I'm on my way." So I drove down there, and they gave me the warehouse key, and I went and put all the, got all the equipment back together, and got with Joe Osborne, and that was a little later. But when I got down there, it was like just Gary and Alan, and they were talking about putting a band together, and they just wanted me to get the equipment back together and get everything going, and at that time, God, it was just, Leon was, his position was questionable because his arm was messed up. It's why he had to play like straight up. It wasn't, they didn't know if he was going to play or not, and of course Billy would have been in the band, and Artimus, and then Artimus got in that motorcycle wreck and hurt his leg, so he couldn't be in the band, But and then they didn't know what to do about replacing or a singer, because they didn't want to try to stay away from the Ronnie image, so they talked to Greg Allman, and it's like Greg wanted it to be more of the Allman thing, and they wanted me to try to get a hold of Paul Rogers, and they thought maybe they could get Lou Gramm to leave Foreigner, and I said, I don't think that's gonna happen. But then they came up with a thing, if we had got a female, and then right away Dale was there, and she did really good. About for writing, and I remember we were in El Paso, and I went. She wanted a typewriter, and I went up and bought her a typewriter, and she was sitting there in the front, typing out all the song lyrics. She did really good with coming up with a lot of that stuff. She came up with some really good songs, Getaway and Don't Misunderstand Me, and there was even one to Shauna she come up with. Yeah, there was a lot of
yeah, there was some great lyrics there.
Yeah.
And then you were saying the way it ended was Alan was up on stage there, and
that was the Alan Collins band. Yeah, that people ask about that. What happened with Alan when he walked off stage, and oh, Jimmy Daugherty, the singer for the Alan Collins band, we were up there at the Lone Star Cafe in New York City, and it was a great. It was a just crazy night, and it's just really, really, really hectic. And this guy jumps up on stage that looked like Ronnie, and Alan was pretty messed up on drugs during that period of his life, and he looked at this guy and he just freaked, and he just put his guitar down and went upstairs in the dressing room, and I ran upstairs. I go, what the heck's going on? Alan goes, it's not right, Craig. And I goes, what's not right? And he goes, Craig, if anybody, it's not right. We're done. It just seeing Ronnie up there just freaked him out, or that guy imitating Ronnie. And like I said, he was not really he was pretty drugged out at that time. He was.
So it ended the show early then, huh?
Yeah. I didn't think he'd be able to go through the tour. He was on those Dilaudid really bad. I even told him, I said, Alan, how do you think you're gonna maintain a tour? Because he was hardly ever in rehearsals or anything, for the thing. Everybody would be out there in his backyard rehearsing in the studio, and he was, he couldn't really play very good, It's bad.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that was like one of the worst times for you.
It was just me and Mikey Sparks.
Yeah.
I mean, and God, I was out there running the damn PA, and I just, I'd been in the studio so much I knew what it was supposed to sound like, and I just get with this guy that owned the PA system. I said, this is what I want to hear. Just get me there. And we worked with it,
Got a picture here. I don't know if we can see it. That's ARTIMUS.
Oh, that's Bosco. Yeah, the Bosco.
Yeah. Frankie Turner wants to know more about that monkey.
God, we were in New York City, and I walked we were in this club doing something, I don't know. It was just another one of those days, and I walked in there, and I was kind of amused by this monkey sitting there talking to Alan and ARTIMUS. It was pretty funny. But I just remember the monkey's name was Bosco, but it was comical,
Was he actually drinking the whiskey?
I don't remember that.
It looks like
it kind of looks like he was,
yeah.
But I asked the monkey.
Have Matthew Doris. He wants to know a little bit. I know we did this on another podcast, but it was how Ronnie got those black eyes. That happened
in San Francisco. Yeah, that I wasn't there to see it. Me and Dean, we were staying at the Miyaka Hotel and that was when I think that was at the same time that the Hearst, Patricia Hearst, me and Dean were
Oh yeah, Patty
in the
Hearst.
restaurant, and the FBI come up and asked us if we'd seen Patty Hearst, and me and Dean decided to go somewhere in San Francisco that night because the band were just going to go to this club and do that club thing, and me and Dean didn't, just wanted to go out and do something else. So we went around San Francisco, and then we got back to the hotel and heard all about them getting the shit kicked out of them. Oh, Ronnie, man, he was in the bunk right above me at that time, and I'd get out of my bunk and I'd stand up, and the first thing I would see was Ronnie's face, and he had these two purple eyes, and it looked like you just rubbed them with Vaseline, man. They were shiny. I know why they call them shiners, man. They were like, he had two big black eyes, and he'd wear sunglasses, and then at the end, when he would give the mic to me at the end of Freebird, he'd take those sunglasses off and look at the whole front. The whole front row would be going, oh.
Yeah.
He loved to shock people, man. He loved to. People say, why do you have his hands all bandaged up and stuff? He was, he people are still talking about it. I mean, he knew how to create an image, but a lot of the times there was really a wound there, but I think he just overplayed it. So, what happened to him? But it's just funny, the legends that he created just by overreacting to stuff, like the Joe Barnes incident about, oh my God, he tried to throw his roadie out of the airplane, People still talking about it 50 years later, I mean, well, what rock star have you ever heard of that tried to throw a roadie out of the airplane? I mean, that's just over the top, man.
And he was serious.
It's great. People still talking about the fight in Louisville, and anything that guy did, he just overplayed it, and people are still talking about it. That's what I'm saying. That Sharon Lawrence, I'm sure he and her got to be really good friends. I think she talked to him a lot about building a reputation, because she sure has one.
Yeah, I heard that a lot of times, people would like to try to interview Ronnie, and somebody said that guy asked him a question. He said, well, here's a question to you. How do you think you're going to get out of this room without getting your ass kicked?
Yeah. People still talking about it. It's funny. I talked to Gary a little bit about it when I talked to him a couple weeks ago on the phone, and I said, Gary, Gary, what's it feel like when a fan comes up, and they got your face on their arm? I said, you guys, you're legendary, man, and you even made me famous. I said, you guys are so famous, you made me famous. It's just like hilarious. I give people my phone number. They'll say, text me, what was Ronnie like? I come and sit there and type. I just give my phone number. I say, call me. I talk to a lot of people. It's really funny, but everybody goes, I can't believe I'm talking to you. Man. You get out of here, man. I was a roadie. Oh my God, yeah. But that's what's so funny. And it's just like, I claim to be the most famous roadie that ever existed, But, like I was talking to Mitch Scooby, he did that podcast for us. He's going to do another one. I think here next week he's going to do another. He's got a lot of good stories, But he was saying, Craig, you're the only roadie that's ever done a podcast and talked about, what we did out here, And he said, we just had a meeting with Upstaging, it's funny because Upstaging started with Lynyrd Skynyrd. That was Lynyrd Skynyrd's first lighting company, and they had a a GMC bobtail truck, 14-foot truck, and it was Bobby Carone and Donnie Carone, the owners of Upstaging. And Donnie was like the rigger, which they didn't really have rigging back then, but he climbed and stuff. And he was only 15 years old on tour, and it was just him and Donnie on the road, and they were in that bobtail. And Donnie was 15; he didn't have a driver's license, so I would ride with them and help Bobby drive the truck from gig to gig, you know. And now they're one of the biggest outfits there is, Upstaging. You know, they're just all into all kind of stuff. But I guess they just had a reunion with a bunch of the old roadies from a long time ago, and we were talking about old roadies that were, you know, just really legends in the industry as far as that goes, you know. But it's just funny how people want me to write a book, you know, and stuff. He was saying, you know, it's just like, I don't know where I'm going with this, but you know, it's just like, I was talking about people like Dallas Shue, you know, who's like U2's roadie, or the Guitar Roadie, and he's been with like them forever. But he was with Skynyrd for a while, and me and Dallas are friends, you know. But he's got, in Australia, apparently he's phenomenally huge there. He's got his own meet and greet stuff over there from being U2's guitar tech over there, you know, in Australia. And there's other roadies out there like Pops, you know, and he was like Roadie of the Year a few years back. He's got that's where I came up with the idea to print myself up a document. Pops has got a real document that come from somewhere else beside their own computer, you know. But yeah, he was Roadie of the Year, and him and Mitch God, well, oh my God, I can't believe I'm coming up with a
Started job.
Mickey McKay. Sorry, Mickey. Oh God. Well, you understand, you know.
Got another question here from our buddy Jimmy Withers. He wants us to tell a crazy Gene Odom story. And you were telling me about, you know, of course, Gene never did any drugs or anything, but tell the story about how he would get a contact high.
Yeah, he tells about he's never been high. I beg to differ, man. He would sit that guy there at that card table and get a contact buzz. What he couldn't grab his ass with both hands. He'd go, "God damn it, you guys, you potheads!" It was funny.
Then we got Sherry Padula. Does Craig remember Ronnie getting locked out of a fire escape of a Chicago hotel?
Yeah, I'm sure. I don't remember exactly being at the Chicago hotel. They all kind of run together, but I'm sure he didn't get locked out of more than one. I'm sure he learned his lesson, you know, the first time. But yeah, I remember that. There, you know, that was when they didn't put the windows where you could open windows, and he wanted some fresh air, so he stepped out on the fire escape, and the door locked behind him, and he's in his shorts, barefooted, on like the 14th floor, and that fire escape is that metal. You know, and he had to walk down all those steps with those metal grate things, barefooted. Yeah, I'm sure that wasn't humorous. It was cold, and once
you go out on that, the door.
Oh yeah, the door locks. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Steve Price, maybe something about Leon. Haven't heard. I guess there's another guy mentioned about the time he took a dump in somebody's shoes.
Yeah, That was at that Miyaka Hotel too. Yeah. Leon. God, Leon used to go. He would if it was a balcony thing where he could crawl out the balcony and get over in the other people's balcony. You go there. But yeah, we were staying. And it's a custom for Japanese people not to put their shoes in where they're at. So this Japanese guy left his shoes in the hallway. So Leon took them and went in his room and pooped in the guy's shoes, and then put the guy's socks back in there.
Did he hang around and watch the guy come? Yeah. Well, that looks like about the end of the questions, and we're running into about like a 30-minute podcast here. It's good to get Craig back on, and thank you everyone for the questions. It was kind of a short notice, but I made that post on Facebook.
Yeah, we got Mike Sparks Mike Sparks, who worked with Rossington-Collins and the tribute tour and did guitars and stuff, and he's in Tennessee somewhere, and him and his wife own a children's boutique and sell children's infants all the way up to 6 or 7 years old. So he's just putting that together. I guess they're just putting it together. He moved or whatever, but yeah, I guess that's a new location, and so he's gonna be free about 1st of July, and then we're trying to get Paul Welsh, trying to get him his equipment together to do one, and then we're gonna get Mitch Scooby. He said he'll do another one. He's got a bunch of really cool stories.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
About why Skynyrd went out on the road, and they're having wireless problems, and
yeah,
and they couldn't figure it out, and Mitch figured it out what the issue was. Apparently they were using some camouflage netting that came from their one source that fell through, that they were supposed to get this netting. They couldn't get it, so they went to the Army surplus and got this radar reflective netting, and it messed up the wireless, and nobody could figure it out. But Mitch kind of told them what the problem was.
He mentioned
a lot of.
Yeah, he talked about that on one of the other podcasts. And Joe Crimp. Yeah, Joe Crimp, if you're listening, get ready, because I'm going to be calling you. We're going to get you on here. So start brushing up your skills.
Yeah, we got a lot of people. I want to try to get a lot. I want to try to, like I said, I want to try to contact Sharon Lawrence and see if she'll come on, and maybe get some musicians, And I know some of the guys in Tesla or something. Maybe I can get one of Craig to come on or whatever.
Yeah, and Gene Odom said he would come on.
Man, me and him partied pretty hardy one night.
Okay, Craig, I guess we'll wrap this one up until the next time. So we'll let you know ahead of time who we're going to have on here if we can. But thanks for everybody coming. You got your clicker ready, Craig?
Yeah.
Appreciate everyone coming to the Roadie show. And
so happy trails to you, and a ta-ta and a toodaloo, and thanks for tuning in to the Stoned Roadie show, and we'll call that a
wrap.
A wrap.
See you next time.